Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about something that I think most of us hate talking about, but it's really real. And so we've got to desensitize ourselves to it, right? And that is rejection. I got a question in another one of my videos that I wanted to answer today, which is really around number one, how do I provide rejection? i.e., do I provide specific feedback or how do I work around that? Also, how do other editors, agents, and publishers perhaps handle rejection when they're doling it out? And then finally, I want to actually share with you how you receive it and what you should take from it, if anything. Okay, so number one, how do I provide rejection? It's my least favorite thing, I'll be honest. I don't want people to approach me who I am likely to reject. That's why I don't actually have open submissions. Whether you know this about me or not, if you look anywhere, you will not see submission guidelines. Maybe I should update it and get really super clear because a few still sneak in there. But by and large, I take solicited submissions, which is to say, and I'm sorry that feels like a tongue twister. A solicited submission is simply I've had a conversation or they have come through one of my other writers or a colleague or some other form and I've actually said, yes, I would like to see your work. That's number one. In how I provide rejection, I actually sort of hit people off at the pass, hopefully, so that I don't have to provide rejection for those people who I know are not going to be a right fit. Number two, when somebody does slip through, it really depends on how close of a fit they might have been to something that I might be looking for. So, for example, if somebody is sending me something that is totally outside my purview, meaning probably not a female. Now, I'm not only providing assistance to females, but mostly I am championing the female voice. So that's number one. Number two, if they're writing sci-fi or fantasy, I'm not a great person to be reading that anyway, because that's not my own personal exciting place to be reading in the market. And so the feedback I could give anybody who's written that is going to be very limited because I don't have this great wealth of knowledge to provide. Otherwise, it might be things like writing style or how polished their manuscript is, in which case the way that I do rejection is if it's going to be a no thanks, I try to pick out what I really loved about what they are doing with their work and maybe where I could see that they might need to tighten or address certain issues. And I will talk about it really in regards to market. So whether or not a traditional publishing house would look at it this way. Because I'll be real with you, almost anybody could write anything and even have it professionally edited. And if they're going to self-publish, well, my opinion doesn't really matter, does it? It's really about their reader, ultimately. But I am happy to give as much feedback as I can while staying in integrity with myself, which means I'm not lying to them and I'm not tearing them down. So I try to take a middle road. That's just who I be. I cannot do it any other way. I want to leave people with the message that there's always hope. There's always improvement. We're literally improving every single day. So if you are in the practice of writing, you should be leaving with hope. Now, let's address the kind of feedback, if any, that you might get from other agents, editors, or publishers, and what I get as an agent from an editor. So again, yes, they are very busy, right? Everybody's busy. We've got a million things to read, especially. And so sometimes you are just going to get a form, no thank you, and that's it. They might be kind and say, I really love the writing or I love the voice, but ultimately it's not for me. I can't even tell as an agent when I get that how that might just be a kind word they're saying, and maybe they don't think the writing is up to scratch. But I have to take it at face value, and I will address this other part at the end of this video. But essentially, I, as an agent, get the same type of feedback that other people get, which is to say, they might say, this is just not for us, or it's a little too similar to something else we've got, or what I get a lot of as an agent from a publisher might be something like, I really like this, this, and this. However, I'm really not sure how to position it as a breakout novel or a breakout story, and so therefore I'm going to have to pass. You have to consider that every publisher, I mean an indie publisher that publishes up to 12 titles a year is actually growing. Some publisher can publish hundreds, right, if they're in the big five, but every single individual editor has also got a limited capacity, a limited number of manuscripts they're going to acquire at any given time. So what they're really looking for is the one that they want to fight for. They're not just dating and kind of having a good time. They're looking for their this year soulmate, if that makes sense. So as an agent, when I'm trying to find the right fit, I'm trying to find that editor that I think is not only going to appreciate the type of writing and the story and the feel of it, but also want to take it out on a date and get married and stay married for at least a year, right? Preferably much longer than that, right? The relationship with the author will last over time. But it takes going out on a lot of dates, and that's a lot of submissions, and that's a lot of not quite fits. That's okay. I probably have said in another video that I really, really love the concept of striving to get 100 rejections. Now, not that it will take 100, but you need to set yourself up for a 3-digit load of no's before you find your perfect match, right? Getting and setting that expectation from the beginning really helps take the sting out of those little rejections. It is not personal. They need to go on to sell it. And if they're not totally convinced, you don't want them anyway, because they wouldn't do a magnificent job for you. So do they give more feedback? Sometimes, but mostly not. It's actually really rare. I would say maybe 2 times out of 10 when I get a rejection, do I get anything more than a very standard, kind, thanks but no thanks. You know, it's not right for our list. I like X component, but ultimately not for us. Good luck in finding a home for it elsewhere. Every now and again, I might get something more that says, this was the particular issue for me, or this was the particular issue for me. And I do find that valuable. But here's where we're going to jump into the final part that I want you to consider. For 10 editors that you submit to, or 10 agents, or 10 readers, 10 friends, you are going to get 10 sets of feedback. And sometimes they're going to be directly conflicting. Now, I can't remember. I just had a conversation yesterday with a writer about this. I don't know who it was that said, maybe it was Stephen King. I can't recall. But said, if you get one opinion or one set of sort of feedback guidelines, that's an opinion. If you get 10 of the same, then that is editorial feedback that you should take. I don't know that we're giving it out that much, and I still want to say that any feedback, including my own, is subjective. None of us can rock up to a book or a film or a television show or a conversation without bringing along all the rest of who we are, right? Psychological schema is what they might call it. And if you're into the spiritual, you'd maybe even say past lives are showing up for you. Regardless, that's just that person. That is subjective. And so even when very knowledgeable, respectable, highly skilled people in the market are giving me and or my clients feedback, I am going to filter it through, does that actually make sense? Sometimes you do want to tweak. A lot of times you don't. And we're not talking about typos or grammar. Fix those. Yes, those need to be fixed. But when it comes to, oh, I didn't connect with a character, or I'm not sure they've really got what it takes. I mean, that's not actually anything I've heard before, but if you happen to get more advice, I want you to run it through your own internal filter. I shouldn't even go up to the head. It really should come up from here and say, technically, it may be, is that right? How does that feel to me? Because at the end of the day, whether you self-publish or traditionally publish, I've said this before, you have to believe in your book. Because when you don't, and I have a personal story related to this, you will not sell it. You will not promote it. You will let it die a slow death. And what a painful process to have gone through. Years maybe, or months of your life trying to write this thing, and you sell it, but they want changes or whatever, and you've got something out there that you don't really believe in at all, and you have to sell it. We don't want that. So it must go through your own filter, and know that you just got to keep going on those dates. You have to keep going on dates until you find the person that gets it. You can tweak a little, but one of the biggest mistakes, and I guess I'll leave it with this, when you are getting multiple rejections, because we want them, we want to hit 3 digits, you will get a greater number of specifics, not super specific, but specifics. And if you took all of the advice everybody gave, the story that you wrote that you are so passionate about is definitely going to become some other story. In fact, if it's even a story at all. Because by the time you listen to multiple voices, think about how that sounds. If we walked around in the world and you weren't already somebody with a mental illness who heard lots of voices, and you were taking the advice of all of them, I mean, we already have multiple voices in our head, even those of us who are neurotypical. And it's messy in there, and you don't want to do that to your story. So filter through the advice, see what works for you, tweak it, polish the grammar, polish up those typos, and then present it again. There are lots of stories of writers who have polished their work over time. My favorite is probably Catherine Hockett, who has now written The Help. And that is a beautiful one. She worked for years, and lots of people did not believe in her and would have said something like, don't give up your day job, sister. Writing is not for you. I mean, that's horrible, but people say stuff like that. And the beautiful thing is, she did not. And now she's given us this amazing story, right? In a book, and then over to a movie. You have to have that sort of resolve, that perseverance, that faith. Yes, you can get more feedback. No, you don't always need it. Okay? That's what I'm going to leave you with today. So if you have any other questions, please leave them below. The more specific you get, the more specific my answer can be. I want to demystify this process for you, because you know what? You have a story to tell, and it's time to tell it. Until next time, bye.